Hello, everybody. So today we're going to talk about Manila, Philippines. It's one of the most affordable places in Southeast Asia. And as you're going to see on the flight map here, it's definitely one of the most affordable to get to other destinations from Hong Kong, Bangkok, Phuket, and many other really important places in Southeast Asia, all kind of looking at a hub of Manila. And it's basically changing so fast in the Philippines that I wanted to discuss it. And this is probably going to be one of the most comprehensive ones on the internet right now. I've kind of looked at YouTube for a while for Manila. There's a lot of street view videos and things. We're going to get into some of that street view. But basically, we got about 30 or so slides that we're going to look at. So, as you can see, flights are very cheap here. We're talking $20 to Cebu City, $31 to Hong Kong, and about $70 to Phuket or Thailand. So just some amazing prices here. So I wanted to start with the climate in the Philippines. It's super nice. It's basically about 70-80 degrees year round. Hold on a second. And basically, most of Southeast Asia is very warm. You can see up in the mountains, it does get cooler there, but actually it's quite a bit warmer than most of China. A lot like India's temperature that you get, and Thailand. So right now, Bangkok is the most traveled to place in all of Southeast Asia and the most traveled place in the world, actually. So a lot of that is changing. I would anticipate that the Philippines is definitely going to come up on a major travel list soon. With Bangkok being the #1 place, there's just a lot of reasons to travel over to the Philippines as well. So here you can see basically the cold season is the same as most places in the northern hemisphere, except for the coldest weather they get is around 71 degrees. And in the summertime, it gets up to 95 or with a low of basically about 77 or 75 degrees. So it actually stays quite similar year round in the Philippines. And you can kind of compare this to the rest of Southeast Asia, and you can see that Manila is actually a little bit on the cooler side here relative to most of the rest of Southeast Asia. For example, you see the islands here being quite a bit hotter and wetter, but it's actually pretty good here in the Philippines. So what we're going to do is kind of diagram out Manila and see what's going on. We're also going to do some street views later on to kind of see some of the major attractions in the Philippines. So basically, what we're talking about here is basically Manila, which is right over here. So basically, you got Hong Kong, Thailand, Bangkok, Singapore down here, and then Manila right kind of in the center as you head up to China, Korea, and Japan. So as you zoom in, let's just zoom in to show you where we are on a map. We can kind of get that detailed view here. So I'll zoom out so you can kind of see where we are, and then we'll zoom in to Manila so you can see I kind of put it on a sideways map here. So typically the map looks like this. And you can see Manila is basically right there relative to everything else. And you can see quite a lot of clouds and the Philippines kind of zooming in here. So as we zoom in, I kind of twisted the map around like this to look at Manila in detail. And you can see basically most of the downtown area is right here. And it's certainly one of the largest cities in Southeast Asia. And it's very fast growing. And very interesting. So we're going to zoom in here, and then we're going to diagram out what's been going on in Manila. So you can see the international airport here is on the south side of the city, and then downtown being right in here. And there's many other cities that kind of head out, including Makati, Quezon City, and then there's a major river that kind of runs through here called Pising. Forgive me if I'm not pronouncing any of these exactly correct, but you can see on this map, you sort of see the major roads, and we're going to diagram those out on the other plot here. So you can see this is basically the major roads, and you can see a lot of this heads out near the airport. You can see that there's kind of this same area right here, and then another area right in here that looks pretty busy. And then this kind of heading out into downtown Manila, and then a couple roads kind of right along the coast being not so good. But in general, right along the coastline looks pretty good. And actually what's going on is the old town of Manila is actually not very well traveled to. Like these newer areas, these newer cities, a lot of people are moving outside of downtown and making kind of some other sub-cities. So let's zoom in, and you can kind of see some of the city. As you zoom in, it doesn't really have 3D view on this, unfortunately. I think it's kind of hard to see. But there's basically a lot of skyscrapers kind of outside the city, as well as in not kind of like right along the coastline. So that should diagram out most of the city. You can kind of see there's also kind of a flood of traffic heading in there, and then also this backside of the city here, as well as another kind of an artery right in here. So I tried to highlight most of the roads, and you can kind of see there's some opposite sides of traffic here heading in and out of the city at the same time. This is around 9 a.m. in the morning on a typical Monday, and you can kind of see how that relates to the airport and some other areas even further outside downtown Manila. So hopefully that gives you a pretty clear view of traffic congestion in the area. And then I kind of zoomed in here to kind of show you right in the port. So here you still have the airport. I'll circle that in green right here so you can see that airport. And then some of these other kind of like traffic zones, and it basically comes right around here into Makati, which is kind of a newer development in the city, as well as Pasig and some other areas. And then this is Quezon City, heading right into town again. We see that there, and then kind of this back side kind of by the colleges and universities. And then there's some couple traffic spots you can see right around the waterfront here, showing some spot like right in here you see, and then kind of another spot right there, and then definitely kind of heading around through here. There's a big mall, and then this is what's called Old Town, kind of the old walled city right in here. So there's a lot of tourist attractions kind of right along the front here, including the Manila Zoo and some other areas that we're going to kind of look at later in this discussion. So I'm going to save these two and upload these a little bit later to the discussion if anyone is interested. And then here's kind of the detailed satellite perspective. So from this, you see some interesting things. You basically see a downtown that's kind of weighted towards the north side, right? So you kind of see this whole area, and some of the surprising things that you might notice. So here's the airport right there, right? And then most of the downtown being right over in this region, and you can kind of see there's kind of a pattern right along here, and then another one coming out there, and then one coming out here, and then even one coming out there, and then even one kind of coming out through this way. So and it kind of stopping because this becomes pretty marshy kind of on the north side. But there's definitely a lot of room for development down this way. But there's also these huge volcanoes, and these have been erupting recently. But this kind of gives you some characteristic view for what the city looks like. I'll save it like this so you can see, make your own marks on these diagrams. So here is kind of a pretty fun diagram because it shows the OpenStreetMap's major roads as well as the airport. So you can kind of see some of that population moving to a different area than you might anticipate. And I'll kind of circle that. What I'm talking about here is there's this kind of north side spot here, and these are way outside of Manila, but you can kind of see these spots as you look into the city, and this definitely shows kind of a different perspective of how Manila works. And you can see there's even some other stuff going on here, and then even further out to here, and then kind of really getting kind of into a different area as you head further out into this weird peninsula that they kind of have. But this basically shows most of the population and the major road maps here. This one is a very detailed map of the population, and you can kind of see, I'm going to circle this in green. There's definitely some interesting spots going on further out in the city that you may not have anticipated, especially on this backside here. And then all this kind of coming down along the south coast, being a new kind of development, relatively low cost. And then there's another kind of huge area right there. And then the main parts of Manila kind of being two spots. And then you see Makati right in there. So that should kind of give you a major perspective of the, I'm going to just take that all out and save that once again so you can see on the main map what that looks like. And then this shows some of that, more of that population heading onto the north side. So there's actually significant amounts of population kind of all in this valley here. And we're going to look at that kind of on the map here. You'll see that this is the valley that we're talking about. So this whole valley is pretty heavily populated. Meaning even though we do see a lot of new development on the south side, most of that actually development historically has been more on the north side. So that kind of shows here, and you can kind of see this population kind of coming all along the coast here, as well as kind of this downtown Manila stuff right in here, as well as kind of the backside of Manila. And even a populated zone right back there. And then this all heading out into a huge zone similar to what we got here. But the mountains are a little bit nicer. It's kind of flat in this region and also very prone to flooding and rivers. As you can see here, this shows that the mountains, it doesn't even show you the rivers, but we're going to kind of look at that as we zoom in. So actually this map is quite helpful. On the population side, it's the NASA map. I definitely recommend that. And then here you can kind of see the downtown, showing kind of a totally different characteristic, heading out to San Fernando, and then this whole part being a kind of a north side, and then this whole being a south side, and actually quite balanced, and actually not too much electricity in the rest of that valley. So basically, although there's huge amounts of population, it may be actually quite poor. And different in terms of farming and some other agricultural stuff. And you can see there's kind of another area right in here. And then maybe this backside right in here. So the Earth at Night map really does tell us quite a bit that is quite helpful about Manila in general. And then here's kind of a zoomed in population deal. And you can see with the road system, some of that actually shows kind of an interesting area right in here, and then kind of another road heading right out to there. And then so this main road, this main faster road basically being the main population branch on that north side, as well as on the south side. You can see how much roads really change and affect the population of Manila. So this is pretty surprising, but you can kind of see some of these populated areas as well as here along both the north and south coasts, and then kind of this back road heading out here around this whole lake. So this lake actually has quite a lot of population around it as well. So it's quite extensive metropolitan area, as you can see. And then here's kind of the zoomed in showing how significant that whole north side is. Now remember, the electricity kind of drops out in this region, and there's actually kind of a separate city right in there, and then almost this whole area can be divided up like this. Excuse me. Showing downtown Manila a little bit different than you might anticipate, I think. And there's actually quite a lot of population right on this coast here. Excuse me, I'm gonna go get a drink of water. So again, what we're looking at is probably the most detailed discussion on the internet, YouTube, that has ever been done of Manila. So I'm quite happy to be able to do this with you today. But you can see the soil map actually shows kind of a different side of Manila, right? So this shows kind of like a section like this, a section like this, a section like this, and then this whole other section here. So it definitely looks different when you look at the soil map here. And this is actually all volcanic around this area. So some of these areas may be quite dangerous. When you consider both volcanic activity as well as natural weather problems. But this is actually quite helpful map. Just looking at both the soil map. And there's actually a more detailed soil map that we're going to look at even in a moment here. So let's zoom in here and look at this population and farming. So there is quite heavy farming kind of on the north side here. And then you can see there's definitely some population there that we didn't really account for, and some other areas outside of Manila. And kind of this area on the south side definitely is complex because there's these weird mountains and volcanoes. And then there's actually quite a bit section right in here, kind of heading off of these main roads. And these yellow roads are not actually very, I mean, there's different quality roads. The red roads are definitely more like highways. But hopefully that will give you a little bit idea of what's going on in Manila. And then here's kind of comparing all of Southeast Asia. So basically we're talking about Manila right in here. And we basically have this whole other section right there, as well as this section right in here. So you can see in the future development, there's definitely going to be kind of like 3 Manilas and even maybe a 4th down here, and maybe even a 5th as you head down here, and then all these islands. So what happens is a lot of people fly into Manila and then fly further south to one of these islands, and basically vacation there. So, but the point is that you'd have to stop in Manila prior to going to one of these other places. And then let's zoom in just to see what's going on here. You can definitely see that this whole area probably is going to be populated at some point. So that's pretty important to look at. And there's this little volcano that I didn't notice right there. So that's kind of interesting to study on the map. And then also from the shipping standpoint, it's important to look at these major ports. So actually it's a major port kind of like right here and then on the south side. So you can see actually it's probably more geared towards the south side in terms of regular everyday boating, and then the bigger boats probably come in through the north side, but there's actually maybe could be kind of wrong, there could be some actually more south side stuff here too, but it's important to look at that shipping map because 90% of all the goods. So here again we got Manila right in here, and you can see kind of the geological zones actually being interesting. So this actually shows quite a bit of geology all the way on the north side as well as right through here as well. So you can see probably in the future some of these areas that have this yellowish color may actually be more heavily populated. And so you can kind of use this map to guide what's going to go on in terms of future development in the Philippines. And then here you can kind of see some of that other geology, particularly in these pink zones. You have a lot of earthquakes and volcanic activity, so you got to be careful about that. And this kind of shows, again, there's kind of this pocket right in here. I won't really highlight that on the map. And then this is one of my favorite maps because it shows the soil map. You can see there's this big flood zone right in here, as well as kind of a big flood zone all in downtown Manila. So that's important to realize that there is a lot of flooding as well as flooding right on the beachfront here. Doesn't make for exactly the best beachfront always, but you can see there's this purple region, which probably means very good farmland, and then this whole section right around here being pretty typical. Extremely high quality farmland. So they actually have 3 seasons here. They can farm 3 crops a year. Like in America, we typically farm 1 crop a year, but they can actually farm 3 crops a year in many parts of the Philippines. So here's kind of the electrical grid. You can see they got quite a lot of power grids over here, as well as on the south side of the island, and then kind of outside the city here as well as here. So this kind of surprised me, just seeing that there's not a whole lot of major power, but they do hydroelectric power, and then also different types of power here in the Philippines that you might not anticipate. And then the lightning is actually quite amazing in some of these areas. So you can see kind of on the north side, there's quite some cool stuff. And there's kind of a chunk here and then a chunk right in the middle, showing some interesting activity that you can't see anywhere else in the world, except for some of these other spots that you see here in Southeast Asia. So that's definitely interesting in terms of the climate map. And then they've actually been losing a lot of their value of the currency. You can see it's basically been dropping here. And then right here it went up, so basically around 2019. And then there was a major drop just recently in 2022, and that may actually be starting to come up again in 2025. So there's actually kind of a possibility for an upswing in the currency potentially. So it could be a good time for the economy for the Philippines. And I was actually quite surprised. There's a lot of businesses because they do speak English in the Philippines, and there's a lot of hold on a second here. So this was very surprising to me. Actually, the electronics industry is quite huge in the Philippines, as well as business services. So because they speak English, there's a lot of that going on, as well as mining, as well as actually farming. So that's kind of an interesting thing to see. Sadly, the Philippines is importing way too much. So the big problem in the Philippines is they're basically importing a lot of food, as well as vehicles, plastics, transportation equipment, minerals, you name it. They're importing it in the Philippines. And you can see on the export side, there's definitely been a couple bad years here. This was around 2007, and then actually even 2011 was even worse. And then ever since 2014, things have been going up. So you can see basically the economy has been improving quite a bit for the last 10 years or so, but it had some definitely downswings here around 2007 all the way to I would say 2014 or 15. And then on the import side, definitely they have been importing a lot more since 2009, so that's basically been kind of a problem. So the imports definitely look not so great, and you can see a lot of that started kind of in this period right in here between 2010 and 2020. And their biggest exporter is basically China. So you have Philippines here sending a lot of goods over to China, right? And then they're also sending goods out to Indonesia, and then you can see Vietnam, right? And then Thailand here, and then even India going out to here, and then even Saudi Arabia being a pretty big trade importer. And then look at this all the way over to Brazil, and actually the United States not playing a huge role in terms of them exporting products, but definitely China gets a lot of products from the Philippines. So that is just about it. We went through quite a lot of slides here. What I would say again, as you look at these prices to different places around Southeast Asia, you can see the prices being quite affordable, and even out into India, you can see $110 to Bangalore. So, and then Shanghai being pretty cheap Tokyo, and even up to and then even Guam being pretty good, and then Cebu City being a $20 flight. So, and actually, it could be an interesting question about getting down to Australia. You can see $241. It's actually quite expensive in general getting to Australia, and even to Africa. Many of these spots here can be very expensive as well. But you can see some prices overall on this map, so you can see it's quite affordable. And of course, if you're looking for warm weather, it's definitely a great place to be. It's a lot like Florida or Miami, temperature-wise. And we went through all these different maps here, so hopefully you can take a look at each of these in your free time and kind of get a better understanding about Manila. Next thing we're going to do is do some street view of Manila, and I'm going to go through some of the top locations in. Whoa, sorry about that. And here they are. So I basically asked ChatGPT about which is the most popular places in the Philippines to check out, and it listed over, I think, 20 or 30 different locations. So I just wanted to go through some of these and kind of say what's been going on here. But I wanted to really highlight a really cool idea, which is the this river tour boat. So they basically have a river that runs all through downtown and kind of runs a little bit more on the south side, and then heads out to this lake here. But there are like boat tours in this region. I just wanted to zoom in and show you what that might look like. You can see there's a ferry spot right here. So there's actually kind of a cool little ferry terminal here, and I'm going to see if I can zoom in and show you what that looks like right at the port. Well, looks like and you can see it got quite a lot of shanty towns around here, so you want to be careful as you're getting around here. I'll go to the Riverwalk here, and I don't even think you can kind of see some of the differences here, but here looks like the port ferry, and you can kind of see the river here and the Riverwalk along here, but definitely you can see the quality of the houses definitely varies quite a bit in the Philippines, so you do need to be careful as you're checking out different places. But that's one spot I want to look at. There's also this Riverwalk area, so if you look at Manila, we're going to zoom out here, show you the airport. So here's the airport, right? And then they kind of got this Riverwalk. There's not too much of a beach in Manila, and that's one of the saddest things about all of Manila, but they are trying to work on it right over here. And there's actually kind of a beach Riverwalk area. It's kind of loading a little bit slowly, but let me zoom out so you can see what's going on. So they're kind of doing some landfill here. There's a major public park. We're going to look at that park in a moment. You can see there's kind of a lot of boating. So maybe the only way to really get out on the water is to rent a boat and do it that way. But you can see here, I'm going to see if I can get some type of street view right along the waterfront here. Sorry about this. It's taking a little bit to load kind of the images here. I'm going to close out this one and load up this one. So let's see if we can get in right in here, see what the beachfront looks like. So you can see quite a number of skyscrapers right along the coast here, and then kind of like a little walkway right here, and you even got a horse. Let's see if we can follow this guy here a little ways, and it looks like there's actually another area right close to the waterfront here, but pretty warm and nice. It's just not quite a beachfront like you'd expect in Miami or maybe some of the other places in Southeast Asia. So it is kind of more urban here, but you do have a waterfront close here. So let's look at the next place. So the next place is kind of this whole area. This is the old walled city, and I'll zoom out to show you where this is. So there's that river that we were talking about where you can take that boat tour, and that runs right through here and kind of the middle part of the city. So if we zoom way out to Manila, so we kind of zoom in here and we see. Yeah, hold on, I'm almost done. So right in here is a couple. This is Fort Santiago. We're going to zoom in and see what that looks like, see if we can get a view of what that seems like. Kind of having some trouble here. Sorry about this. There we go. So it's loading in some of this here. So this whole area is kind of the old walled city, and it is kind of really nice right next to there. So I'm going to pick a point right in here, see if we can get a view for what this looks like. Yeah, hold on. So I might have to come back and finish this later, but you can see there's a little wall around here. So we're going to zoom out, and you can see there's kind of a fort here area. We just went into that little area right there. Maybe we can go right in here on the other side and see what that looks like. But you can see it looks pretty fancy overall, kind of a walled city, but you got some water areas. Not too many people actually visiting this area. One of the problems is you do have a lot of poverty, and you do have this whole shipping area, as well as shanty towns kind of located just across the river here. You can see this is all kind of like a shanty town, and basically it makes it a little bit weird to come in here and visit, but it looks like they got like a nice little park all the way around here. So I'm going to just end this with that. If you want, there's a whole bunch of other areas. There's cathedrals and some other areas to check out all around Manila. There's definitely one thing I wanted to mention is the malls, and there's basically like 10 to 50 million people visit some of these malls in Manila. So they got some ginormous malls to take a look at, and then there's this huge park right along the waterfront here. This is kind of where you can see this is the airport again. Major park right here to take a look at. So I hope you enjoyed the study. Let me know if you got any questions. I'd be glad to discuss further details about Manila with you. Let me just zoom out here so you can see where we are. Thanks for taking a look at this study. Hope you've learned a lot about Manila, Philippines. Thank you so much.